So, as far as writing goes, let's talk about writer's block a little bit. It's a very touchy subject. There's a lot of causes. There's a lot of reasons why it happens. I've only experienced it one time in my life, and I'm not joking. It's only been one time. My first book, actually, I learned the hard way, and it took the entire book to realize it, which made me have to rewrite the entire thing, and almost nothing survived. I had to change everything. So my writer's block and what can cause it is acting like a god and making things happen instead of letting it happen. And what I mean by is, when it comes to stories, especially when you have characters, hands off is the policy. If they make decisions, they make decisions. Don't try and change these decisions just because you feel you don't agree with it. The story is the story. The characters are the characters. They're going to do what they're going to do. See, when it comes to writing stories, you have to ultimately realize you are literally creating life when you write a story and write characters. And I mean, you literally create them, as in they probably really exist, at least in your head. I know therapists and stuff would claim that it's like a psychological disorder or sociology, I don't know, however you say it. It would be a disorder of multiple personalities. And I mean, in a way, it's true. Because when you create your characters, they literally become almost perfectly self-aware. They have dreams, they have like ambitions, they have goals in their world that you created. And you're not actually making decisions, they are. They take a life of their own. You basically create the world, it creates the characters, you pick and choose through the story, the timeline to where you start your story, and they take, they're on their way and you're just observing. That's how it should be. It's kind of like, you gotta look at it this way too when you're a writer. This is the real world. It sucks, we know this. We're not getting around this. Why do we write stories? Why do we think about, doing stuff with our existence or life? What's our drive, motivations, and stuff like this, right? We have dreams, we have thoughts, we have tasks, things we want to achieve in life. What if someone magically just comes right down and tells you you're doing this, and you have no say? And that's your life. Basically slavery. I'm pretty sure you'd be pissed off and rebellious. I know I would. Well, your character's insane. They have everything you have, and they demand it, and they deserve it. I mean, they are going through hell, possibly, or some kind of hell, whether it's a love romance or a King Arthur world, or Space Wars, Space Cowboys, whatever you want to do. But the bottom line is, you force the story and you're guaranteed writer's block. Because a good example is this. Your protagonist has a partner, right? They're side by side since childhood. They make a bad choice, or their partner makes a bad choice, they get into a hairy situation, and unfortunately the partner dies. Don't resurrect or avoid the situation. And this is why. If they die, they were supposed to die. When you alter a storyline or a life, remember this. story is the story, right? Content is content. Their life force is cut off because they no longer have a story to tell in this world. It would be the next world where their story continues. If you keep them in the storyline they should not still be in, you now have a smorgasbord of possibilities, and not necessarily positive ones. The course of events will now alter everything. You now have extra story, extra details, and a life that should have never been interacting with other lives from that point. Like you're literally now having to solve the puzzle of how do I make this work? Because you're rewriting all the history and future events. And you're creating something forcefully the entire time now because you did something you weren't supposed to do, which is touch. Whoa, I mean, people misconstrue writing. They do have there is such thing as creative writing, where you take your own liberties and do your own thing and stuff like this. It's probably one of the harder things you could ever do is creative writing. Because writing like fiction, nonfiction, stuff like this, I honestly, I don't consider it creative writing. I consider it, you're just the narrator of a real story that's unfolding in front of your eyes and who's writing about it. Almost like a journalist, reporter, or whatever. I don't consider that creative writing, even though a lot of people argue this. When it comes to writing, and you're writing worlds and characters and stuff like this, it is always the best policy to be hands-off, because you cannot alter timelines or structures without the whole thing hitting a fan. Look at everything that we've been forced down our throats in the past 20 years. All the reboots, all the sequels. How many have been successful? Tell you right now, almost every one of these that weren't successful were based on forced writing, because they want it pumped out as fast as possible. Everyone has say, which no one should have say, and everyone keeps forcing the story and content and all this other crap, and then they do it in the smallest deadline. I mean, you're literally talking about rewriting lives and making it make sense. It doesn't make sense because you're altering it in spite of what reality is in that world. I mean, there's a catalyst to all of it. It's just like the theory in alchemy. To transmute is to take and transform, but when you do this, there's more loss than there is gain, because it takes more to craft. There's no way to manifest a life to extend beyond its native story, because there's no room for it. I mean, it was one of those things where I kind of liked, if you're ever familiar with Xena or Hercules, way back in the 90s, they had the Fates who cut strings, and one of the gods was manipulating them to cut people off early. I forget the episode entirely. All I know is that they ended up having to go and stop the manipulation, and I believe they reversed some of these time cuts because they weren't supposed to be cut.